There we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, joined by this beauty of a man here in Liam Picks Fights. And it is an absolute beauty for you guys this week. UFC 271, a long anticipated rematch, Whitaker Adesanya. And I am hyped for this card. 14 fights to get through. So, first of all, let's hear from our co host, Mr. Liam Picks Fights. How are we doing?
I'm doing quite well, Gordo. I'm very fired up about this fight card, my man. A little bit more action than normal for me. I think that this is a great card. I think that there's a lot to like about it from an entertainment perspective, but also from a betting perspective. And I'm just fired up, man. I think that, there's a lot to dig into. So I'm happy to start whenever you are, brother. Let's do this.
Well, perfect. And you know what? This is one where we're talking about a lot of our betting spots. And like you said yourself, I got a bunch of betting spots myself too, because it's just a good one. Lots of violence, lots of wide lines, and we'll get into that as we go. One more thing I'm going to mention before this starts. Anybody watching this live after this video is done, you can check out my DraftKings video I posted. I will cover all DraftKings stuff there. We'll mostly focus on betting today. And if anybody wants to make some extra change, I'm doing a little DraftKings giveaway, so go check that out on that video as well. All right, without further ado, I say we jump right into it. I mean, with the cancellations today after weigh-ins, this is why we do the show on Friday night. We wait to see what we miss. And there's two big things that happen. Number one, Snell Perez fight is off, down to 14 fights. But probably the biggest thing, no pun intended, was the first fight of the night, William Knight missing weight. Now, he did not just miss weight. He destroyed weight. He missed by 12 pounds. And that's something we definitely got to factor in when we're looking at betting this fight. But all right, let's get her going. William Knight, 11-2. Maxim Grishin, 31-9-2. And I'm going to kick it right over to you. I said the main thing I got to say, and that's there's a huge weight miss. This is now a heavyweight fight. And did that change the way you're playing this at all?
So no bets on this fight yet, which is a little surprising for me. But I will say this. I like Maxime Grishin to win this fight. The weight miss made me less confident in my pick because, William Knight, a lot of his game is predicated on him not dying, taking up space, pushing you into the fence, being really strong, and having the potential to kill you because he's big and powerful and can move his body quickly, despite the fact that he's at these higher weight classes. Now, William Knight has had a little bit of personal involvement in my life. Not to say I know the guy or anything like that, but he's been supposed to grapple my teammate over and over and over again. And they keep delaying it and things like this because he keeps taking these short notice UFC fights. So in fairness to him, I think that he is doing some kind of training, but the guy has a job. He's not just like a full-time combat athlete. He has another job, coaching and doing stuff. So I think that William Knight, kind of tried to step up on short notice here. If you read the stuff on Instagram, he said that his body's completely shutting down. That's why he couldn't make the weight. So that would be a real concern for me as well if I was on the William Knight side of things. The problem is just that, Grishin is now fighting into this big weight disparity, and I kind of thought he was going to knock him out, especially if we saw William Knight get down to the weight. You dehydrate yourself. It's a lot easier to get knocked out, I would think. It's not going to be that way, right? So he didn't have to suffer to make the weight fully. He did do some suffering if he's fucking shutting down physically. But, I think that the level of suffering that Maxime Grishin, who's a fucking massive 205er in his own right, former heavyweight, I do think that's a concern. So, I might even wait for a live entry, see if Knight buzzes him early or something. I just think Grishin is like better fighter across the board, decent stand-up skills. I thought he hurt Dustin Jacoby bad. He did miss weight for that fight. But he had that guy all sorts of rocks, sent him all over the place. And I think that, Dustin Jacoby would beat the shit out of William Knight more often than not. But the thing is, William Knight is that strong guy who will just run his feet and push you onto the fence. I don't think it's going to work against Maxime Grishin. I certainly didn't think it would work at 205 pounds. But what is he going to weigh tomorrow? Like 230? He's going to be a big
dude.
man. So I think that that's a concern a little bit for Maxime. I wonder how heavy he's going to get on his rehydration. I'd be stunned if he went, much over 225 pounds or something. So I think, there might be a size edge here for William Knight. ironically, because he's tiny, but he's just got them big muscles, man. He weighs a lot. I think Maxime should handle him convincingly, though.
Yeah, this is one where William Knight's a guy I can never get right. I mean, he's not the most talented fighter, but he's huge, push people up to the clinch, and he does have that one overhand right. And I think the love for William Knight for me just comes from the way he looks. Just me and my roommate just laughing at this guy's physique because he's an absolute beast. That's one guy that just based off pure looks, I wouldn't want to get in the cage with. But anyways, I would lose in the cage to everybody. So moving forward, it's one where I was originally thinking maybe a dog shot on Knight. The weight miss happens. That kind of piques my interest. I'm like, okay, he's going to be the bigger fighter. He's going to be able to implement his clinching more. And then you see him being drained and him not being able to make the cut and him attempting to, but his body shut down. That's when I want no part in. You do not want to bet in a fighter with no wheels or someone who's going to give up halfway through the fight. Just ask Lara Procopio, who we'll talk about later. But I don't want any part of this one. I think that Grisham should roll here. I was originally on some Knight and DraftKings, but I think that's kind of gone out the window. We'll have to see how this weight miss goes on. One last thing to point out too was, I don't know, I forget who tweeted it out earlier, but fighters who missed weight by 10 or more pounds are 0-5 in the UFC. Not a good look. So pass fight for me.
I think that was Dan from Best Fight Picks, and I also think that he is on the Maxime Grishin side, 1.6 units at -160 for whatever that's worth to you guys.
Oh, a little bit of bias? No, I'm just what I'm saying is it depends on what side you're on. If you're on the Knight side, you're like, okay, this is good. He's gonna be bigger. But then you're on the Grisham side and you're like, ooh, he had a bad weight cut, right?
My question, if I'm on the Knight side, is why did he miss weight? Because the why is everything. And I think that the fact that his body shut down on short notice is a bad why. It's not the worst. You know, it's not like, yeah, my ankle's broken, so I couldn't run. But is that a part of it? Is that something that we're not hearing about? Was the diet shitty? Is that why he can't cut what's the problem? That would be my thing, because he's accepted fights on short notice and made it, more than once. So what was different about this experience? And so, I just wouldn't feel confident. Also, William Knight just doesn't have great skills. A botched weight cut like that could diminish your cardio. He's shown good cardio in the past, but times when we see outlier cardio events is when people have weight cutting incidents, by example. So it's just a couple things that I would be worried about from a Knight perspective. But like you mentioned, size is real. So he had to pay 40% of his purse because he cheated. He showed up 12 pounds heavy. And I'm not saying that to kick a man while he's down. I just mean in practical terms, it's a fight at a contracted weight. The other guy showed up and made the weight. So he cut X amount of his body, weight and percentage, and it's going to be a lot harder to knock him out. So it's the reason why Matt Schnell didn't take the fight against Alex Perez, full disclosure. It's just like you're looking at the situation and saying, I already thought I could get knocked out here. Now you're showing up heavy, now trying to cut the last few pounds. Go fuck yourself. And I actually think that's fair play.
All right. Well, I'm not going to dwell on this
one longer. And I
had
so much money on Perez KO, so fuck it.
Yeah. We were talking about that one earlier, and that was a bummer because I actually thought that was going to be a pretty interesting fight. But it's funny how this one goes on and that one doesn't. But respects to them. I'm not going to dwell on this one any longer. I think that we both are pretty neutral on it with the edging the Grisham side. I don't like fights where there's too many uncertainties. But I'm going to move on to the next one where I see a lot more certainties. In fact, Jeremiah Wells, 9-2-1, Blood Diamond, Mike Mateta, 3-0. One thing to get out there before I toss it over to you, Blood Diamond, a friend of Izzy, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, a friend of Izzy, very credentialed kickboxer, but we've seen him tossed and thrown around the ground on the regional scene. I think you know where I'm going on this one. I'm on the Wells side, but let's hear what you got to say about this one first.
Yeah, so I'm not going to give away every bet that I have because I do want some incentive for people to tune into my show later as well. But I will give away one bet right now, and that's Jeremiah Wells inside the distance. Me and you discussed this. -138, much better than market average on Bet365. I thought it was worth a little bit of time to drive out to Jersey. So I put down a decent wager on Wells inside the distance here. Listen, I watched Blood Diamond's tape. I don't think he's like a bum, right? I don't think he's a terrible fighter, but he's completely unproven at this level. He's very inactive relative to most of the guys you see competing at a UFC level. And while he's probably been in the gym working, it's a big gap he's got to try and shore up. in my opinion, from a wrestling and grappling perspective. He got arm tossed on the regional scene. He was able to take the guys back, and I think that impressed some people. I was like, guys, if you're getting arm tossed, it's just a complete red flag. That should never happen to a high-level pro, in my opinion. It shouldn't have been like you fall over the top and then spring yourself back. It should be like the guy falls over and then you stay on top. It's like arm throws are very hard to pull off, low percentage. And that guy didn't even look very good at them that tried to pull it off. So he's fought a very low level of competition, and he did not look bulletproof in those fights. Like, I don't know anybody who would watch those fights and be like, oh, dude, this guy's a lock. He's not bad. He's got some potential, but this is biting off a little bit more than he could chew, in my opinion. On the pro side for Blood Diamond, the reason he would want to take this fight is because Wells is a little reckless on the entry. And I think we could all see that. Wells is a wild fighter, but I don't think he's ever been knocked out in professional competition. I think that he's a guy who's overall pretty tough, pretty durable, and he's got scary power in his own right. He's knocked people's head clean off. He's knocked people out on the feet. He's knocked people out with ground and pound. I think all that's alive here, which is why I didn't try and get frisky with the submission prop, though I do think he has the submission here if he wants it. Jeremiah Wells, say what you will about his wrestling entries, because I thought they certainly looked a little clunky against Warley Alves, but granted, you'd be a little tentative wrestling Warley Alves too. He submitted the likes of Colby Covington with a guillotine. You don't get too frisky with Warley, but he did body him in the clinch there completely. And on the regional scene, I saw him get a lot of easy takedowns. I think that Blood Diamond's probably not going to be able to defend takedowns from a guy like Wells, who's so physical. So if he decides to fight smart, get in the clinch, get a hold of this guy, push him back to the fence, I think that Jeremiah Wells is going to pick this guy up, slam him, and his top game is efficient. I've seen him operate like a smooth guy. Granted, again, it was on the regional scene, but he showed devastating punching power from the turtle position in knocking out Warley Alves cold, by the way, with like short right hooks. So it was a weird transition. It was kind of a weird fight, but he sent Warley Alves to the depths in that fight. And I think that on top of that, you go back and watch his regional footage. He's not, a world beater, but he is a guy who can punish people that don't have a competent ground game for sure, with strikes and with submissions. I think that he's probably going to take the back early in this fight and submit this guy. But if not, I think this might be a really ugly, brutal, vicious ground and pound stoppage because Jeremiah Wells, when he gets to that top position, throws hammers with the elbows, with the hands. It's a disaster. And he punches you to the body too. This guy is a long guy. Maybe he has something to offer on the back that we've never seen before because he hasn't had that many minutes. We really haven't seen much of him. That would be my only concern here. That's why I'm not laying the minus 250 or whatever it is on Wells. But, if Wells is as competent as I think he is on the ground, this should be an easy night at the office, and he should take this guy down and finish him.
Hey, that's music to my ears, and you've hit all the points I wanted to. I'm pretty high on Wells here. If you guys see my DraftKings video, he's my core play this week. I just think he has such a path to victory here. We've seen that, whereas Blood Diamond has some very good striking skills, his grappling is not up to par with people even on the regional scene, right? So this is one where I think Wells has the power, the explosiveness to close that distance. And if he decides to grapple, I think he looks like minus 500, minus 600 here. He could become the Almeida or the Chimaev of the first round finishes. But I think more likely than not, he spends a few time in the feed, explodes into range, gets that takedown, and absolutely dominates down low. So I'm with you on the finish. I think it's a great line. I'm on minus 138. It's like a better line than what Alberg is to finish, which we'll talk about later. But anyways, I think that Wells is a great core piece of mine on DraftKings and a good betting parlay piece for all those who like to do that. And I love to hear that you're on the same side as me.
Absolutely, my brother. And I did put out a couple of long shot parlays that I played through Bet365 earlier today on Twitter, and included in there Wells inside the distance at minus 138, as well as Wells and Blood Diamond under 2.5. Guys, if Wells loses this fight, more often than not, I don't think this goes to decision either way. I think that Blood Diamond would knock him out because Wells is a little bit reckless. I have seen him get hit and hurt a little bit. So it is something that has me just like, let me have this insurance. I'll play one of them with Wells inside the distance at that nice short price. But even at minus 350, I think that's like the tail end of value on the under 2.5. I think these guys kill each other in the first 2 rounds. Wells has done almost all of his work in the first 2 rounds.
Music to my ears. I'm going to be on that same side as well, but I will have a lot of Wells there as well. No pun intended. All right. Moving right along. Douglas Silva, Dondrage, 27-4. Sergey Morozov, 17-4. This is one where there's a few exciting ones. This one I think is going to be a bit slower pace, but I definitely have my good hot takes on this one. Liam, any quick thoughts on this one before I take her over? No, all me. Well, this one's perfect. I think we all remember last time that Silva Andrade was out there. He sent Perello to the absolute shadow realm with that right hook. Literally lift him off his feet. He was floating in midair, and it was a sight to behold. Morozov last time out, he showed an incredible display of patience, takedowns, and grappling against Gan Kalataha. And was able to control himself on the feet as well and look pretty good. He came into the UFC with a very, very tough opponent. I think that's where people are a bit down on him. He wasn't even, I think he was an underdog in that Taha fight, but like facing your Magomedov in your first fight in the UFC, that's a tough one. I think that this is finally a chance for Morozov to show off his ground game once again. I do know that, first of all, that Andrade is huge for the weight class. We know that. But I think that if Morozov's able to implement his grappling, he should look up to his price tag here. We all know that Silva Andrade packs that power on the feet, but I think Morozov's footwork there as well, along with his ability to get it to the ground and the fight IQ, will win it for him here. I'm not going to spend too long on this one. This is one where I'm not really targeting too much on DraftKings, and I don't have a bet on it yet. So pretty much I do think that Morozov lives up to his price tag, but if it stays on the feet for longer periods of times, it could be competitive. I just don't think Morozov is going to let that happen. All right.
Fair play, man. The only thing I would say is my initial thought was just dog or pass based on the odds performance of both guys. They've just been bouncing around all over the place. But Douglas De Silva, he's got pretty decent resume in the UFC in terms of the quality of competition he's fought. And Morozov, he's just a little bit fresher, a little bit greener, and getting that 70% distinction. I think that that's just a touch generous, but hey, I do think he wins the fight more often than not. So, I'm not playing the other side. I that's just how I looked at it. Without taping it, just looked at it from an odds perspective.
Well, Liam, I don't know if so last weekend I had my plus 10,000 parlay go up in flames with Soriano there. But I still cashed out, made some good money there. My big parlay for this week, my choice is Morozov by decision. That's my final play. I do have him in there. Again, it's a long shot for a reason, but I do have Morozov to win this fight by decision. I'm just not as convinced as other plays. And when I have so many plays already, I'm not going to go chasing this. I think it's going to be a close one. And like you said, the line's a bit wide, so it's not one that I want to play anything on the money line either. Okay, moving right along. Fourth fight of the night, Jacob Malcoon, 5-1, AJ Dobson, 6-0. And this is one I've been waiting to talk about. I have not pulled the trigger on this one yet, but I am big on my boy Dobson this week. We've seen Malcoon nuked in the first round, and AJ Dobson's a guy with first 6-round finishes. He's been murdering his competition where they've been a bit lower level. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table here. The line has moved incredibly. Right now, it was evens. I think you can still get evens right now. Let me double check. Yep, you still can. That's going to require a play for me. I'm still waiting, though. Malcoon's a guy who showed really good wrestling his last time out against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Al Hassan, a guy who's much more flat-footed, though, and able to be taken down. So I don't expect the same game plan here. I'm pretty big on AJ Dobson. I think he's a good GPP play as well because his ceiling is so high because he's able to go out there and nuke someone in Jacob Malcoon. But let me hear your thoughts on this one before I get too overboard on it. Oh.
We got the Ohio State hat on today, so I'm coming in biased as shit. I like AJ Dobson in this matchup as well. Now, that being said, right, I get the merit to Malcoon in the matchup in the sense that, we saw, I think it was last week when Punahele Soriano got spam takedown to a unanimous a split decision loss. But I think that, man, we could see something similar here. That's my only concern. But I think Dobson has a lot of finishing equity here. Powerful guy. I think he should be able to stop the takedowns, especially early. We don't have a ton of data on how he performs late. So that's why I haven't played him on the money line here. I did also include him in my DraftKings lineups because I think that his early finishing potential is very high. And I think that, it's not outside the bounds here that he could stuff takedowns, sprawl and spin behind. I don't think that Malcoon is like the world's greatest grappler, but I hear that he does coach at Whitaker's gym. That would concern me just a touch. I know that Dobson's an insane athlete, and so I feel like that has been an archetype that gave Malcoon problems. But we've also had really limited data set on Malcoon, and that was like a pretty unique challenge in a UFC debut, like one of the biggest crowds in UFC history. So it's just like weird situation, and he got instant death. That's like, sort of a result where you can take it or leave it from a capping perspective. I would take it though, because I think that we have somebody with the same kind of dynamism here, but he's got a lot less experience. So I think that, the line basically makes sense to me. I think that Dobson opened as a bigger favorite, right? Odds makers gave him some respect. And I think that the public is lining up pretty hard behind Malcoon here. I don't want to be on the public side for that kind of matchup. But I'm not fired up to play Dobson as a straight money line. I think that I would target his finishes. I would target those early round props a little bit. But I don't think that unless he hits that underdog tag, then I think the buyback is going to happen. Whether it's us or somebody else, I think the buyback will happen. I think it will close a pick'em fight. I think there'll be a tug of war till the end, but I don't think that Malcoon is like a great fighter with a ton of upside. I think his striking is pretty vulnerable. But I just, again, have seen now a couple of these spam takedown decisions. He fired off a shit ton of takedown attempts against Al Hassan. And I think that was just an impressive volume of attempts. I think that Dobson's going to offer him a lot more physical resistance. But again, it's a little bit yet to be seen. Razak, a little bit undersized for 85, and looked like he would rather be anywhere else in the world but in the cage that night. So I think that, Malcoon might be in for a rude awakening here. But Dobson, if this fight gets extended, we don't know what his cardio looks like very much as the fight goes on. So he might be in for a rude awakening down the stretch. Either way, I'm on the under 2.5 here. Thought that was a good look. The line got crushed. I think I played that at -124. Shout out to Andrew Gombus. I literally was looking at the line. I had sent it in a group chat, and then I see that he tweeted it. I was like, that line's about to get crushed. I have to go now. So I played it, and the line did get crushed to like -150 right away. So I think the under 2.5 here is a good look at anything under -150. Certainly. And, even still, there might be value on it. I just don't know what Dobson's cardio looks like down the stretch. It's possible he could just ride this guy for a decision. If he's able to counter the grappling and stay on top, for example. So that to me is just an open question. But yeah, I think more often than not, Malcoon dies.
Perfect. That's exactly what I want to hear. And I haven't played it yet, but I definitely will. Keep your eye out on that. It's one where, despite Dobson not having that experience, it's because he's killed everybody in the first minute of a fight. Sure, they haven't been the best fighters, but you can arguably you can argue that Malcoon isn't the best fighter in his own right either, and it's not like he's got an iron chin. I think Dobson's more explosive. He's able to defend those takedowns. He has a decent guard game in his own right. The one thing I will say is if it goes past that first round, I'm looking for a live entry on Malcoon every single day because we have no data on his cardio. That's not a knock on him because he has been getting those finishes, but it's not there. For that reason, I will take Malcoon, who hasn't shown to go 3 rounds if I do get a live entry, but I'm just expecting Dobson to go out there and nuke him early on. So that's going to be the play for me, and I hope it happens. All right, moving right along. Ronnie Lawrence, 7-1. Mana Martinez, 9-2. And this one is an absolute banger. I love this one. I love my Ronnie Lawrences. I love my guys who spam takedowns like Marab. Well, except for Maximoff last week. That hurt my feelings a bit. But I like my Marabs, and Lawrence is just like that. He puts up a huge score his last time out on DraftKings, averaging 10 takedowns per fights in his Dana White Contender Series and UFC debut. Absolute killer. I think he steamrolls here. Are you with me? Do you think your Ronnie Lawrence gets her done?
Yeah, man. So I played Ronnie Lawrence round 3 or decision in parlays. I played Ronnie Lawrence to win by KO, TKO in rounds 2 and 3. I played him to win by sub in round 2 and 3. So I basically targeted a lot of different later finish props here in my long shot parlays. I think that Ronnie Lawrence, to win inside the distance I played straight as well at plus 220. I thought that was a good bet. I think that Ronnie Lawrence here is just going to offer a lot of problems. The one concern I have is sometimes, he leaves that chin a little bit out there on his takedown entries. And, we do have a guy that could crack. I got out over my skis a little bit on the Mana Martinez tape from the regional scene. And I was like, man, this guy's going to knock out Guido Canetti in the first round. And that was a real underperformance, I would say. I do think he is capable of better than that. However, I do think it kind of points to a little bit of a ceiling for him at his current iteration in the UFC. When that power game isn't working, he's having very competitive minutes with guys that are in their 40s. That's a horrifying visual. Ronnie Lawrence fights at a high pace and uses pace as a weapon. I think that's going to be a factor in this fight, especially down the stretch. We've seen Mana Martinez get exposed by Draco Rodriguez on the ground, a guy who really washed out quickly from the UFC, and hopefully he can rebound and come back. But, not a loss that aged terribly well either. So I don't think he has very many credible wins. He's got a nice knockout over Tercios, I think it was, on the regionals. But, really outside of that, he hasn't done much great work. Fought a lot of small shows. I think the pressure could get to him here as well. It's a pay-per-view card, coming off of, devastating like a sketchy win where you're like, basically everybody shits on you in a win never feels good. And now he's coming out here as a massive underdog as well against like fresh young guy who's got a lot to offer in the wrestling, grappling, who just keeps an incredible pace. I just think they did him no favors with this matchmaking as a result of that, lackluster performance in the debut. So I think that, this is not a very good matchup for Mana Martinez. He's going to be pretty KO or bust, I would think.
We're lining up today. That's not always the case, but on days like this, it feels good. Ronnie Lawrence is a guy who's got some great fight IQ.
Don't worry, we'll find something, Gordo. We'll find
for sure. I already know, man. We talked about it earlier. I already know exactly what you have, and I'm going right against you on some of them. But this is one where, he's got the cardio, he's got the takedowns, he's got the fight IQ to match it. It's a really tough matchup for someone, Mana Martinez, who isn't going to be able to keep up, in my opinion. I think Lawrence absolutely rolls here. He actually rounds out my biggest play of the day. I'm doing a very square parlay. Don't care. Jeremiah Wells, Ronnie Lawrence, both of them to win. I think that's the way to go. Two guys who I think have a huge edge in the ground if they decide to take it there. We all know Lawrence is going there. Hope Wells gets there too. But no, Lawrence got that cardio. He's got the IQ and takedowns for days. Takedown after takedown. So good at what he does. He knows what you have to do. And I think that his ground game is even better than Draco Rodriguez's. So I think that's a pretty good tell if that's the right way to put it. But I also got to say, though, Mana Martinez had his his coach pass away during the week of his last fight. Maybe it was an off night for him, but even when he saw him at his peak in the regional scene, I still think Ronnie Lawrence takes him every day of the week. So that's going to round out the big play for me, but it's an early one. We still got lots of fights to go. Let's move it right along. Carlos Ulberg 3-1, Fabio Cherant, the Water Buffalo 7-3. This is one with question marks all over. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because it's very simple. Ulberg is a very powerful kickboxer who got, I don't want to say rope-a-doped, but that's what comes to mind. It's because Kennedy Nzechukwu took 158 punches in the first 8 minutes, shelled up, survived, let Ulberg gas out, and then knocked him out cold. I think that Ulberg has a lot of holes in his game, but he's going up there against a guy who's looked very, very questionable in his own right. The Water Buffalo was finished in, a minute to Menafield, knocked out cold by William Knight. It doesn't look like the best matchup for him. I do think Ulberg is able to knock him out, especially with that volume, pressure, and pace. But Ulberg looks like he's trying. He's working at Fight Ready while he was there to help train for a camp. Looks like he's got some decent skills on tape, but he doesn't have the skills to match in the ring so far. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Man, this for me is, one of the matchups that I'm a little bit less interested in betting on the card. I'm even losing my place here for a second. My goodness. Where are the odds for this fight? Here we go. Okay, so at a market average of minus 253, Yeah, it's just not something I'm supremely interested in playing from a money line perspective. When I look at Carlos Ulberg, I look again at a guy who's got very little experience in mixed martial arts, and it's a little bit hard for me to lay that kind of chalk. Fabio Chiron, say what you will, right? The guy's not good at MMA. He's not very good at any one particular skill set. However, he's not horrific, right? Like he's shown he doesn't have great durability. His submission defense could use a little work. He's not the best proactive grappler, but he's fighting a guy who's like probably not very good at a lot of those transitional MMA skills either. It's a guy who's primarily good at kickboxing. So if Fabio Chiron has half of a brain, he's going to bring his wrestling shoes, he's going to bring his headgear, and he's going to wrestle this guy with everything in his body. And I don't see why he couldn't find some success in that fight because, Ulberg doesn't seem to me like he's the world's smartest guy, like he's the world's most devastating puncher. That being said, he could definitely hit, hurt, and knock out Fabio Chiron. I don't have money on Fabio Chiron. I don't want money on Fabio Chiron. But I'm just not going to lay the minus 250 here on Ulberg. On my longest of long shot parlay type things, I have an Ulberg inside the distance. I have a under 2.5 rounds here. But this could easily be, a shitbox greasy decision that goes either way with a lot of clinch work because Fabio Chiron doesn't want to die again. So I just don't think that, backing Ulberg is something I want to do. At this kind of huge distinction, at this kind of weight class where the finishes are so, frankly, stupid at times. Somebody just gets dinked on the chin or whatever, and they're spinning in circles. Like it's just a whole different ball game with the guys that have this kind of weight and mass behind them. Fabio Chiron seems to me a little undersized. I think more often than not he gets knocked out in this fight. But I also think, am I going to lay that? Am I going to say that I want to support that monetarily? It's like, no. Not at chalk. It's just disgusting to me. After, Kennedy and Zechiku, we all talk about his durability, and I think he spent a lot of it in the Ulberg fight. But, I also just, I question, how easy it was for that other knockout to come. Was that a result of accumulated damage? It's very possible. Was that, just an indictment of some of the power of Ulberg? It just might be. So, I'm not itching to play Ulberg this weekend at all.
I think this is a fight where if you need a parlay piece, which I don't recommend parlaying big things, but the fight will not go to decision. That's something I got to put my foot down on. It's going to be done early on. Well, sorry, either early on by Ulberg or later on by Chiron. The thing with Ulberg I will give him credit for is he gives it his all at the start. Like he goes balls to the wall, and sometimes it gasses himself out like he did last time. There was a ton of volume, and I don't think he has pillow fists. I do think he has a lot of power. I just think Kennedy did a good job of shelling up last time. That being said, he did shell up and then get knocked out by an elbow, so I don't know what to say about that. But I do think that Ulberg has a lot of skills to win this fight here. He pushes forward. He's got great power, great kicks. Schranch is not good enough, in my opinion. I think that I'm trying to be careful what I say here because I know that anybody gets in the ring, I owe them my respect, and I'm not as good as they will ever. I'll never be as good as they are, but Ulberg's going to mop the floor with Chiron. I don't think Chiron's good at all. That being said, there's so many question marks around it that there's no reason to be taking Ulberg's money line. If you're going to bet him, you're taking him to win by KO or TKO. Unfortunately chalked, but guess what, Liam? Hate me all you want. I took some cash on Ulberg inside the distance. Minus 138 was a bit too short, so I don't know. I think that he's able to go out there and put a finish on early on, and if it dies, it dies. I think that you got to have a live entry if needed on with the Water Buffalo Fabio Chiron. But other than that, I think Ulberg takes the crown here. I think it's a fight to make him look good. I unfortunately think Chiron goes packing, but who knows?
I think you're spot on there. I would just say like the round props probably have a little bit more equity if you have access to them, only because Ulberg has shown that if he throws at that kind of clip where we want him to be, if he's looking for the finish, then he also could just be completely death gassed and die. And Fabio Chiron, not going to be the guy who knocks him out on the feet, I don't think. But when you're death gassed and mostly a kickboxer, if somebody wants to wrestle, you are not defending takedowns.
My plus 152 on Bet365 right now for Ulberg to finish in round one. Not gonna bet that. I don't think it's a good bet, but because you know what, he still had energy in round 2 to start it. Alberg did against Njeku, but I think it is done early. I do think it probably has more value if I was going to go there, but we'll see. What if this is Malcolm Gordon again? Oh, that elbow, man. It's one of those ones where I think that Malcolm Gordon has a ton more skills than Alberg does. The problem with him was Alberg had a glass chin. I think Schront's skills are a bit less all around, but oh well. Malcolm Gordon proved a lot of people wrong. All right. Not Liam, though. Not Liam. Liam had that all the way.
I got the worst of the line movement on Malcolm Gordon. How could I be so stupid as to think that people were going to realize that he had a chance? How could I be so stupid? Malcolm Gordon, baby. Oh, Canada.
And a great name.
Canadians just keep getting me paid, brother. The Canadian underdogs. Doubt them at your peril. Except Hakeem Dawodu. I lost the paper on him.
Hey, I'll take all the credits for the Canadians. Those are my boys. You've got a great name, too. All right, this one's going to be fun. Kyler Phillips, Marcelo Rojo demoted from the main card. Ooh, tough. Kyler Phillips is a great, great fighter, in my opinion, who lost what should have been a draw his last time out, but we were not going to talk about that. Marcelo Rojo's had a tough go in the UFC so far, but he's 16-7, Kyler Phillips 9-2, and let's let you kick this one off. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so I want to shout out Just Win Baby. If you guys haven't followed him, go ahead, follow him on Twitter. One of the sharpest handicappers in MMA, verified, certified, go check his record. But he wanted to do, our best bet prop of the week. And so we released Kyler Phillips by sub at plus 550. And he thought it was value at plus 500. US Domestics, FanDuel, a couple others have plus 550. I got to admit, I played that number myself. I must also admit, I played Kyler Phillips sub 1 and 2 at plus 750. I think that's a great value bet. I think a lot of the win equity, the finishing equity for Kyler Phillips is in the early portion of the fight. We've seen it a number of times now. Kyler Phillips likes to get after it. He likes to hurt people early. He likes to fire a lot. He likes to, press the action. But we've also seen that he can't always keep the pace that he sets. He'll set this very, very high pace and then, be a little bit wanting later in the fight if the fight makes it there. I think he's going to be a little bit more calculated in this fight based on the last result. I think we're going to see Kyler Phillips come out here. I think he's going to land hard strikes to get some respect. And I think he's going to shoot the takedown. I think he's going to get the takedown. And I think he's going to work and find ground and pound shots, beat up Marcelo Rojo. Marcelo Rojo's a tough guy, and, he's not a horrible fighter. He's a guy who likes to compete. He's a guy who likes to stay in the brawl. But I also think he's taken a hellacious amount of damage in his career. I think that he's, had a lot of his best performances outside the UFC. And I think that this is a really tough matchup for him. From a stylistic perspective, very dynamic finishing threat. He's been finished a lot. A lot of those are later finishes, but we've also seen him get submitted just a number of times. I think that Kyler Phillips is far superior on the ground, and Kyler Phillips hasn't showed off a lot of his ground game. I think that's why this price is so short. People have seen that he's almost knocked out a bunch of these guys, including Paiva. So they're like, this guy's power is crazy. I think he does have good power, but, betting a bantamweight to win a fight by knockout at plus 110, it's like, maybe there's some value, but that's going to be thin. It's going to be tough margins there. I think the way to play that would just be either the under 2.5, the fight doesn't go, or you target those sub props, fade the narrative a little bit. I think that Kyler can win this fight by submission. And so that's the prop I'm going with. And I think he does it in round number 2.
Awesome, man. I think that's a decent play. And I was looking at it, and up here, I don't got that many books, but I got my fair share. The best line I can get on submission is plus 300. My line is gone. I wish I gotten it earlier. I should have listened to you because I do think it's a great spot there. Looking over here, DFS would use Kyler Phillips in it. Yeah, I think Kyler Phillips was a great play this week. I mean, he's got that a huge win equity, and he also has a very good chance of scoring high, which is what you want. You want fighters who have the ability to go out there and put up 110, 120 points at all times. But at the same time, he's probably going to be a higher owned fighter up top, in my opinion. So maybe that's a good thing, especially if you're playing some cash, but I do like him in both formats. I do think he wins pretty convincingly. for all my DFS players out there, make sure you're commenting your DraftKings username under my DraftKings video on this channel as well. I'm doing a free giveaway, so why not win some free cash off of me, all right? What's going on in the Combat Sports Central? Let's keep her rolling. Special guest coming on soon. Who knows? Spoiler alert. Anyways, let's keep her going. 8th fight of the night, Roxanne Modafferi, 25-19. Casey O'Neill, 8-0. And Casey O'Neill is my girl. Leah, we've gone head-to-head so many times talking about Casey O'Neill. I have bet her every single time. And I'm telling you for a fact right now, I don't think I can bet her this time. I don't know. I love this girl to death, and I think she has a bright future, but she is green. She is a green fighter. She has a lot of skills, and she's able to dismantle this low level of competition, but Roxanne Modafferi is not this level of competition. I think this fight is super, super close. I'm going to give the edge to Casey O'Neill in a lot of physical aspects. She's a younger fighter. I think she's tough. And I think she's working at a lot of things, but she gets hit a lot. And Roxanne Modafferi is a dog. She is an absolute dog, and she's able to go out there and cash some underdog tickets recently. I know it's a retirement fight for Modafferi, and I should be betting Casey O'Neill because I've been betting her every single time. Why stop now? But something about this is making me feel like this line should be a lot closer. What are your thoughts on this one? I'm excited to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, man, and I almost want to watch my tongue a little bit on this matchup. I think that this is a girl that's burnt me a number of times, right? So I just got to be straight up and honest. I lost a lot of money betting Lara Procopio against Casey O'Neill. Okay. So I think it was one of my first 7-unit plays. I'm like, I'm so sold on that because granted, if you've watched any Lara Procopio fight, she keeps a great pace, active, competitive grappler, throws a lot of punches, throws a lot of strikes, and just looked completely unlike herself in that fight. So she was actually winning early, though. That's the thing, is she was doing everything I thought, and then the fight just fell apart quickly in between rounds. She told her corner, I'm not feeling well. I feel sick. I literally was feeling sick too because I knew my money was dead. So I've lost a bunch of money fading Casey, right? And I think that Casey is a very obvious side this week because she's younger. Roxanne's going into a retirement fight. Roxanne is an underdog of huge magnitudes in every fight. A lot of recent visuals of Roxanne getting beat up, thrown around, slammed, punched, damage. So I think that, there's credence to the fact that this could be the time when she gets finished. She's got one foot out the door. She's mentally checked out, and she is a little bit older, right? She's just long in the tooth. She's had a lot of fights. Casey O'Neill, pretty violent girl, gets on top of people, likes to really try and throw a lot of strikes and get them out of there. So I think that people are seeing an aggressive finisher against somebody who they don't expect will have the hunger on their way out. So they're taking the inside the distance here on Casey O'Neill. Guys I respect, right? But then I look at the other side here, and when I honestly, I thought it was kind of a no-brainer that this fight wasn't going to go the distance. I thought it was a no-brainer that Casey O'Neill was going to win the fight when I first thought about it. But then as I started looking back at the tape, I was just like, man, Roxy looks pretty good in these fights. She loses, right? She loses clearly even some of the fights, but she gets on top, or she pushes them into the fence, or she lands a couple strikes, or she gets the single leg, or she gets a sweep. It's there's no fight really that I went back and watched where she doesn't have success. And some of the fights she has a lot of success. She's been a very profitable underdog in the UFC, and she's been very atypical throughout her run. I don't think that it's a lock that she wins this fight. I think it would be a fight that's kind of tough within the margins, right? So even if Roxy wins this fight, I think there's a potential that it could be after getting beat up for a while, she gets a submission. I think it could be she gets, top position a few times and makes it very close and it goes to a split. I could see a few different ways that Roxy wins this fight, which is why I would have to, lean dog or pass at this huge plus 300 tag. That's a money line perspective. I get people wanting to target props on the O'Neill side. The money line on the O'Neill side, I don't understand personally. I can't get to 80% here. And certainly I don't know what your edge would be if she's 80% here. Physically, I did not think Roxy looked poor on the scales. I was looking out for that. Sometimes when somebody's ready to retire, they look like John Vellante showing up for work. And other times they look like professionals. I thought she looked like a professional. So I'm excited to see this fight. I think a lot of people are going to have egg on their face if Roxy comes through in this fight. And I think I don't know how many sharp people are going to be laying the money line on Casey O'Neill this weekend. I'll leave it at that. I think props on the Casey O'Neill side. Fight doesn't go. Good ways to target her. But I don't know that backing, relatively green fighters that have kind of had, interesting circumstances. Lara Procopio, Shayna Dobson, no longer with the organization. So I think her quality of wins leaves something to be desired. Her regional tape, not altogether that impressive. And on top of that, I believe she was knocked out more than once in amateur MMA. So I think that there's still some reasons to question, the durability of Casey O'Neill in the spot. And it looks to me like she's cutting a decent bit of weight. She looked very sucked out on the scale. I think that Roxy, she doesn't have great power. She doesn't have very, what's the right word for it? Aesthetically pleasing striking, but she has somewhat effective striking as well. Landed some clean, straight punches on Talia Santos. I was impressed by that. So I think this is going to be a competitive fight, and competitive fights, if you got a minus 400, you look dog or pass, in my opinion.
Fair. And whereas I don't want to be mean to you and rub in your face for that Procopio loss, but I was on Casey O'Neill there. And the point is not to shit on you for losing. It's for saying that I've been on Casey O'Neill every single time, and I can't bring myself to do it here. I think that despite how I think that she's the youth here, she's the young side, she's the one up and coming. She has the skill, she has the ground game. The line is so wide. And when we're looking here for people like Embe, who are new people to the DFS community, a lot of people are going to say, all right, I'm going to go play at Casey O'Neill. And that's what I'm hoping happens, because people are expecting her to go out there to recreate what she's done the past few fights. It's a lot tougher out here. I don't think that Casey O'Neill's going to be rostered too much for me in my lineups. There's so many people around there. Kyler Phillips, Jeremiah Wells, Ronnie Lawrence. Those three people I'm going to have way more than Casey O'Neill. And I think this would be one where I just sit back and just hope for her to win. I love Casey O'Neill. I'm going to be cheering for her all the way, but I can't bring myself to bet on it. If you're looking at parlay pieces, there are so many better ones, and I think that line is way too wide. You know what? Knowing me, I'll probably have some long shot parlay on her, because Casey O'Neill is my go-to girl, but it is a tough one for me to pick. And for that reason, I'm going to take Casey O'Neill to win. I think she does, but no official bet for me. All right, let's see what we got going on here. Casey going to win. I see that. And apparently, Liam, you secretly love Casey, and maybe you do. I think you secretly hate her for all the money she's made you lose.
I'll tell you what, man. The truth is, I think that she has a path to winning this fight, but I just don't rate her wrestling as altogether very effective. And I think that the Procopio fight was an example of that. Granted, Procopio's got a lower center of gravity, so a little bit harder to take down, but I don't know. Like Roxy, she has shown some susceptibility to takedowns, but when I look at the quality of wrestler and athlete, I don't know. I just think Casey O'Neill, I heard Ozzy, again, very sharp capper, want to give him the credit here, talked about the physical maturity. She's very young, man, and she looks young. Roxy looks like a grown-ass woman. It just looks a little different, man. Like a 27-year-old man versus a 23-year-old man, it just looks a little different. And I think it's the same thing in WMMA, where, normally you tilt towards the younger athletes, but I do think there's that cutoff point. When is too young? And I'd say sometimes it's before that physical maturity, and everybody's a little bit different. Casey O'Neill obviously has shown off, just fine physicality so far. But again, you got to look at the quality of competition. And one girl was standing up to her physicality and then couldn't anymore. And Shayna Dobson really couldn't stand up to the physicality at all and has a zero ground game. So it's like, you just have to temper expectations, I would say, for somebody at 24. It's a lot of pressure as well to come in and talk about early retirement. What if she goes all out for the finish and just death gasses herself? I'm not saying that's the most likely scenario, but she's talking herself about what she wants to do, come out there, get the finish, send her off into retirement. That just could lead to you performing in a way that is not advantageous. So, man, I don't know about that.
Yeah, and you're saying Rux is 25% takedown defense. True, he's not the best takedown defense, although against a lot of good wrestlers. I think you mentioned up here that you think that, yeah, Santos beats Casey. I agree with that. But I think this is one where physicality doesn't play a huge part in it. I'm cheering for Casey. I hope she wins. Age is a huge thing, like you said, and that's where we're going to end it, because this next fight up, you got to keep that same mentality. How much does age play into this next fight? Because rounding off the prelims, Andre Arlovsky, 32-20, fight number 53 for him. Jared Vanderaa, 12-6, fight number 18 for him. How old is Andre Arlovsky? 55? No, I'm just kidding. He's 43 years old. He's been in the UFC for a while, and he goes out there and he's still proving people wrong. This is a fight where age is the big reason for a lot of people betting Mr. Vanderaa. And as someone who played Andre Muniz against Jacare Souza and got lucky with that arm break, I have to look into it with the age.
Take that back. You did not get lucky. Andre Muniz would beat him fucking 7 out of 10 times at least. Continue.
Okay. Let me change my word. I got a good bet with my Andre Muniz inside the distance based on his youth. And this is one
damn right you did.
I'm going to have to, by the logic, I have to play Vanderaa here, don't I, too? But no, I think that this is one where Vanderaa is a big lumbering guy whose only path to victory here is if Andre Arlovsky slips and ground and pound. We know Vanderea's got good ground and pound. The problem is with Arlovsky is I think he's got too good of technical movements. He knows what he's got to do. That chin has been in and out, but it's one where I want no part of it, because I think the better fighter has the age problem. And I don't want to bet on an older fighter who's got the age problem. Anyways, what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, man, this is a fight that admittedly I didn't do my tape yet. So I have to do my due diligence from a tape study perspective here. But I basically know who these guys are, right? Like my tape study is to make sure I didn't miss anything, so I can see how some of their strikes will interact with one another. But broadly speaking, I know the archetype of the guys that are fighting here. And Andre Arlovsky, this line is starting to close, and I think that is sharp money on Jared Vanderaa, and I'll explain why. I think that Andre Arlovsky definitely can win this fight. He is like clearly the more technical fighter. But when you look at Jared Vanderaa, man, he hasn't spent very much time at distance in the UFC. Only 50% of his fights so far have been spent at distance. And oftentimes that's not from his decisions, right? It's like Jared doesn't always pick to go to the clinch, to the ground. He just gets put there. And he's fought a couple guys where that's sort of going to happen to you, right? He's got a brick for a head. So he's pretty damn durable. I don't anticipate that Arlovsky knocks him out a high percentage of the time. But what I do know is that in fights that are at distance, what we've seen is that Jared Vanderaa throws more volume and lands at a high clip, right? So 6.7 strikes landed per minute and 14.3 distance strikes attempted per minute when he's at distance. I don't anticipate that Andre Arlovsky is going to come out here wrestling. He just doesn't do it very often, if at all. So Andre could probably win this fight by wrestling, by clinching, by pushing this guy against the fence. But if this fight takes place at distance, I think it's very likely that Jared Vanderaa knocks out Andre Arlovsky. I know he does not have a ton of power, but dude, if you're throwing 14, 15 strikes per minute at a 43-year-old heavyweight that's been knocked out a fucking bajillion times, it's very likely you're going to knock him out. If you're landing 7 strikes a minute, 6-point-something strikes per minute at a 43-year-old, you're probably going to knock him out. So I think that is something that people are drastically undercounting here. The rate that people get knocked out at in the UFC shoots up around 38. Andre Arlovsky's been fucking playing with, like borrowed time, in my opinion, at the heavyweight division. He does it by using, skills, but he also does it with this clever matchmaking where he's really fighting the bums of the division more often than not. And if not the bums, the guys who don't have much power. Tanner Boser comes to mind. Great fighter. Beat Arlovsky. Cost me so much money. I can't believe they didn't score that for him. But why did Arlovsky win that fight, my brother? It's because he threw like 7 punches to the head and Tanner Boser threw 0. He kicked the leg fucking 500 million times and just didn't put a stamp on it. And at the end of every round, Arlovsky would be like, here's my chance. Da-da-da. 3-piece combo. Round's over. I win. Do you think that's happening against Jared Vanderaa? No, I don't see that happening at all. I see Jared Vanderaa staying in his face, getting hit by hard shots early, and throwing a fucking million strikes until Andrei Arlovsky drowns. So I don't know what to expect here. I will go back and tape this before I play it, but in a couple long shot parlays, I must admit, plus 420 on Jared Vanderaa to win this fight by knockout seems a little absurd to me. And on top of that, I think how many fights go to split decision with Andrei Arlovsky? And we've got the guy who's going to throw a metric S ton of volume for the heavyweight division. If Arlovsky's smart here, he's going to come out here. He's going to press this guy into the cage, but this is the big cage. And Jared Vanderaa, not the most fleet of foot guy in the world, but he's also, not a complete pushover. He looks like a big glass of milk, but otherwise the guy, he's pretty solid. He's like decent amount of weight to him. I don't think Arlovsky's just going to bully this guy around the cage. So while I think that Arlovsky, is the better fighter, timing's everything. And, gun to my head, I probably have to say that Jared Vanderaa knocks this guy out, and probably in the first or second round.
Fair. Maybe it's that Tanner Boser Tanner Boser win that makes me kind of nervous here, because he did steal a chunk of my change there, but I'm not. I don't want any part of it.
So much, bro. So much.
This is not one that I want any part of at all. I'm gonna sit back and enjoy. The Mountain is a funny character. He's in a bunch of wars, and it's not like he's gonna do anything in his division, but he's got the chance to face this older man, and he's a big guy. He's able to inflict some damage here. So I hope Arlovsky wins, but I'm gonna have no action on it. I can't rely on him at that point of his career to go out there and win me some money. So I'm gonna keep my hard-earned cash to myself on this one and hope for the best. All right, with that, we're already at the main card. First up, Nasrat Haqparast 13-4, Bobby Green 28-12-1, and we're on the same side. We've been talking about this all week, so let him know, how do we see this one going down?
This is Green Haqparast. Okay, that's it. It's time. I think Bobby King Green is coming this weekend for blood, man. I think that Nasrat Haqparast, I will say this, he has impressed me at times in the UFC, right? I did bet him before that Dan Hooker fight because I thought plus 160 was a little bit undervaluing him. Wrong. Dead wrong, dude. He looked like shit in that fight. I thought that the reason for this play was that I watched the whole body of work from Nasrat Haqparast in the UFC, and I haven't seen foundational improvements of some of his flaws. For example, he doesn't have a great answer when people pursue takedowns. He likes to back himself up a little bit because he's constantly trying to reset his feet to fire a counter left hand. He has a decent right hook. I've heard a lot of people saying he doesn't have any offense off the right side. I would disagree just a little bit. I think sometimes he does a good job of firing the left, and if he misses, he'll step into range with his lead foot and throw the lead hook from like close to you. He'll use the left as like a threat to get in close. But I really think that when I look at Bobby Green, he doesn't get hit with very many clean strikes. I know that people laugh about the, pointing to the chin or the saying that didn't hit me or the doing this. But I also think a lot of times he's trying to do that because he's lost so many decisions and he's trying to demonstrate, no, that one didn't hit, that hit my shoulder. No, that one, because he's lost so many of these close decisions. I really think it's like, it weighs on him mentally. That being said, I think that Bobby Green offers some unique threats to Nasrat. He's a switch stance fighter, right? He's not going to just stay in one position the whole fight and let you get simple reads on when to time your shots. He switches stances. When he's in that southpaw stance, Nasrat's had a lot of problems dealing with southpaws in the UFC. I think that Bobby Green could hit him with clean shots in the southpaw stance off the left hand. I think on top of that, when Bobby Green starts to switch stances, he can work in his kicks very effectively. I think he can kick to the body effectively. He showed that in the Fiziev fight. Fiziev landed a lot of hard body kicks, but Bobby Green down the stretch started landing his own, started answering back with those kicks. He also kicks the legs inside, outside. He'll do the intercepting teep kick to get people off their game if they start trying to come forward on him. He switches stance on the retreat. I think that Bobby Green just has a lot of functional MMA skills. And on top of that, his wrestling is severely underrated. The guy has out-wrestled the likes of Clay Guida in the UFC. I think that when I look at Bobby Green, I think he's systemically underrated. As a favorite, the guy has been 4-1 in the UFC for a significant ROI. Nasrat Haqparast is a negative ROI as an underdog, 1-2 in the UFC as an underdog. And on top of that, he's negative actually, I believe, overall in the UFC betting on him because he's been such a significant favorite in some of the fights that he lost. He got knocked out by Drew Dober in the very first round. I do think he has more power than Bobby Green, obviously. I don't think Bobby Green wins this fight by knockout at a very high clip, but I do think Bobby Green, round 3 or decision, is sound at plus 145. I think that Bobby Green to win this fight by points at plus 195 was a great bet. I think at plus 180, it's an okay bet. I think that Bobby Green on the money line at minus 135 was a great bet. I think Bobby Green is going to be minus 185 in this spot more often than not. So I think a lot of people are down on Bobby Green because he's had close fights with guys that are studs and that are going to have really long futures in this division. And I just think that there's a lot of, there's a lot of talk about Nasrat Haqparast, but there just hasn't been a lot of development that I've seen in the film. So maybe he shows a better product here. He does have fast hands. He does have some decent power. He's hurt a couple of the guys that he fought, even the ones that he didn't finish. But I also think he's had a pretty cupcake schedule in the UFC. The fights that he stepped up in competition, he got severely outclassed by Dan Hooker. That was a pretty thorough beating, I would say. He got beat up in the clinch, where Bobby Green is also low-key dangerous. So I just think that Bobby Green has more avenues to win the fight. And I think that he's going to fight a smart game plan here, calculated, and outland him. Two rounds at least in the bank for Bobby Green. That's how I feel.
Music to my ears, my friend. I feel the same way. I think Bobby Green has the volume. He has the output to win here. Haqparast has done a good job of boxing people up, but it's not like Rafa Garcia didn't put him on the back foot there. It's not like he has knocked out. There's a lot of holes in his game, and I think that Green's able to exploit that. I just think the line should be a bit wider, and I feel like I have the edge. I capped it a bit higher for Green, so getting minus 140, minus 135. Great bet there. I'm on Green to win here, and I think he does it by decision. Maybe even late round finish, but I wouldn't go out there. I think that Ali Quinta one was not one really put too much stock into. I think people who got in on the over was a bit short as well. I think that wasn't bad, but I think Green gets it done here in either the later rounds or most likely by decision. Let's keep her going, though. 4 fights left, and this next one is one I have a pretty hot take on, but Alexander Hernandez, 13-4, Renato Moicano, 15-4-1. Alexander Hernandez busted onto the scene. Beneil Dariush, boom, knocked out. And he's had a few highlight reel knockouts, but he's also had a couple losses. I know you're going to talk about the Thiago Moyes fight there. Renato Moicano's fought the best of the division. Most recently, he got a win last time out, but then he got knocked out by Fiziev fighting before that. But he's fought some good competition. He's got a great ground game, has some decent striking too, but has had some chin issues. This is one where you have a powerful striker who's young, explosive, decent wrestling, but he's going to want to keep it on the feet here. And I think that his only path to victory is to knock out Moicano, because I think Moicano has the better technical striking. I think he has the better ground game. And for me, I just think this one goes under. I think we're seeing a finish one way or the other. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, man. This is a fight that I think both guys could potentially finish, but I do think that the finishing equity more so lies, especially early with Alexander Hernandez. I don't like how Renato Moicano reacts to punches. I think he's been knocked out brutally in a few of his fights. He's also absorbed a lot of damage over his UFC career. He's going to be the older guy in this matchup here. And I think that Alexander Hernandez does possess a lot of power. The Beneil Dariush fight is obviously an outlier relative to some of his other performances, but I think that he's like a confidence-based fighter. And when he does not feel confident anymore, he could be talked out of a fight. it's possible that Moicano can, break his confidence with the jab. He does operate well behind the jab when he can establish it early. I just have this concern that, Moicano is going to get bulldozed in the opening minute here because Hernandez sometimes fires out of the gates, with some zeal. And I do think that can throw off Moicano. He likes to get comfortable. He likes to be the bully in a matchup. And I do think he's benefited from some guys that, I mean, the Damir Hadzovic fight is literally like a non-entity. It's one of my favorite fights in UFC history because the argument that ensues afterwards will go down in history where he's like, I wanted to keep fighting. Well, then you shouldn't have submitted me. I just think that Moicano is like, he's kind of a guy that likes that ego fight a little bit, and it's cost him more than once. So I do think at featherweight, he had a really great body of work. At lightweight, he's had some tough competition, but the fights that he won were a lot more softball competition. The Jai Herbert win, for example. Jai Herbert just doesn't have a very technical ground game. I think that Alexander Hernandez, I don't have any money on him on the money line, but I do have some sprinkles on those round one props and the TKO props for round 1 and 2, because I think that he just is live to catch this guy with power, and Moicano kind of keeps his head on that center line to target. So unless he's able to establish those range tools, keep him off with the teep kick, I think it might be a little bit of a problem.
Oh, couldn't find my unmute button. Anyways, yeah, I'm with you here. I think that definitely can be a problem. I do think that Moicano does have the edge here. I'm going to probably be picking him in a few DraftKings lineups for sure. Not the biggest fan of Hernandez. I don't know why. I don't think that his game is that good as people are saying it up to be. I know he's got that good power. He went out there, starts Dariush as a absolute beauty and something that's going to look great in your resume. But I think he's got some holes, and I think that he's going out there against a really good level of competition. And I just think that it's going to be Moicano's time to shine here. I will admit, though, it's completely live that Hernandez knocks him out early, and for that reason, I will have some Hernandez in DraftKings. But we haven't really seen his ground game tested too much, Hernandez, that is. So I'm looking to see how that is there. We all know Moicano's world-class there, so it's going to be a fun one to watch. I'm hoping for some violence, and I hope I'm not wrong with that one, because that's definitely something I'll be playing. All right, let's move into the top 3. These are the 3 bangers, and I know you're going to want to talk about this one for sure. Your boy Blonde, Derrick Brunson, 23-7. Jared, the Killer Gorilla Cannonier, 14-5. And this is an absolute banger. Before we get anywhere into this one, the Killer Gorilla Cannonier coming down from heavyweight, light heavyweight, and now he's here. He's on a run versus the guy in Blonde Brunson, who's on an even more of a run, who's looking into title contention after what was a fall from grace earlier on. He looks like he's got 2 fights left in his career before he's out of here, so maybe he's got a foot out the door already. I don't know. I'm on the Killer Gorilla here. We've seen Brunson wobbled in so many of his recent fights. We know his chin's not there, but he's able to bail out with that wrestling. The problem is, I don't think he's able to get those wrestling chops off against Jared Cannonier. He's a huge guy with a great foundation, a good base, good takedown defense. And I think that power is going to be too much for Derrick Brunson. I don't know. I think you're on the same side as me, but I'm happy to hear you break this one down. Mike's muted, my friend. Yeah.
Brutal. I literally did it right after you did it, Gordo. So fair play. Now I can't even roast you. But I think that, this is a fight where, man, it's just the fact that Cannonier is down at 185 now. I think a lot of his stats, for example, are negatively skewed by the fact that he was fighting guys that are suboptimal. When they've got a huge weight advantage, huge anthropomorphic advantages in terms of height and reach. Jared was not a properly sized heavyweight for sure. And light heavyweight, the run went even worse. And I think that that's in part because he was like now undersized, but also not as fast. Now he moved down, and I don't think he's as fast as a lot of the middleweights he fights. There was a couple times when Rob Whittaker hit him with shots where he literally just watched it happen. He was like just getting snapped back with them with almost no reaction. But I also think that he's like durable for a lot of these shots. He did get wobbled badly by Whittaker, but that recoverability was insane. He literally like fell face down. I don't know who that referee was. That fight could have been stopped for Whittaker for sure. But Cannonier was able to fight his way back and almost knock out Whitaker at the end of that fight too. So it was a hell of a war. And I think the Cannonier, man, he's shown me improvements fight over fight, and he's an old guy. So it's like not easy to see that very often, but I do think the Cannonier has stayed on that grind and kept improving. I love Derrick Brunson. Like, Derrick Brunson will be a personal fucking hero to me always. He wears the domestic abuse. I beat up domestic abusers. He's a gangster. He's Gibbs gang for life, trained by Jamie Gibbs, UNC Pembroke's finest. Hell of a wrestler, Derrick Brunson, underrated wrestler his entire career. But these guys are both in that 38 years old category, right? Somebody is probably going to get knocked out in this fight more often than not. The question then becomes, who's more likely to get knocked out? And the answer is pretty simple. I think the answer is Derrick. Derrick has been wobbled in a lot of his fights. You know, that Darren Till result, he was almost lucky to come by. I say, as somebody that cashed the greatest bet I have ever cashed, Derrick Brunson to win by sub plus 2,900. It just doesn't get better than that. I got down on my knees and thanked the Lord. What a cash. You just can't write it better. He was getting hurt on the feet, and he said, F this, double leg to the mount, to the back, finish. Easy bread. I was like, I can't believe it. Now we see his path to victory. You know, a lot of times Derrick doesn't get one takedown and stay on top unless it's a Kevin Holland who can't get back up to his feet. When guys work to get back up to their feet, they get back up. The thing is, Derrick can normally get them tired. I think he's going to have a hard time doing that against Jared. Jared is like a piece of, you know, cement. When you see, I heard somebody else this week, I forget who said it, but it looked like Jack Hermanson rocked himself when he shot into Jared Cannonier, because he like hit into him and was like, what the hell is this guy made of? Like, he just like looked like he was stunned. I think Derrick is probably going to secure a takedown or two in this fight. You know, I find it hard to believe Derrick wouldn't be able to get in on his hips here because Derrick is very insistent on that. You know, he does a pretty good job, even when he's hurt, finding the legs. The problem is guys that turn side on, like Israel Adesanya, and force Derrick to switch off from a double to a single, he's a lot less proficient with that attack. I think Jared is going to be hip to that. I think Jared is a student of the sport. For everything else about him, the crazy crystals and whatever else, I do think he's a student of the sport. I think he comes with fairly intelligent game plans. I thought he fought very smart versus Kelvin Gastelum. I thought he had the right ideas against Robert Whitaker and almost made it come to fruition despite like a break in his arm and stuff. So I think Jared Cannonier has been doing better work lately than Derrick Brunson. I bet on Derrick Brunson against Kevin Holland at plus 150. I bet against Derrick Brunson, I bet on Derrick Brunson against Darren Till at plus 150. I bet on him by sub in both of those contests at plus 1,400 and plus 2,900. I just can't see this fight playing out the same as some of those other fights. Edmund Shabazian is a complete gas bag. Jack Hermanson, I bet, to beat him there. And, you know, both guys, Jack and Derrick, had the same experience, right? Where they kind of got messed up on the feet early, but then they were able to get the guy tired, stay in on the hips, and get the finishes, get the takedowns. I think that, you know, Jared dispatched of Jack Hermanson in violent fashion, and he's got good counter wrestling tools. He throws knees, he throws kicks, he throws uppercuts. All of those things hurt you. And I think that if Derrick Brunson gets hit with a Jared Cannonier uppercut, he is going to the rafters. I love Derrick Brunson, but I did not like the talk this week about 2 more fights till I'm retired, win or lose. That to me seemed like he's, you know, trying to draw some outs for himself mentally. And I just think he's in for an uphill battle, man. Jared Cannonier's a rough matchup for him. It's a winnable fight. On paper, I know the takedown deficiencies for Jared, but I'm telling you that I saw Robert Whitaker try his damnedest on a very nice and well-executed outside trip, and he did not get credited for it on UFC stats because Jared was so quickly to his base and back to his feet. So the guy, you know, if you want to have that insurance on Derrick Brunson, maybe the poke on the subline again, because it's gotten cut back in half, right? It's back in Holland numbers. But I do think that that's Derrick's best path here, is to win this fight, inside the distance. I just think the longer the fight goes, the more likely it is he gets knocked out here. And 15 minutes with Jared's a long time. I do think that, we saw Whitaker survive. Whitaker had to go through hell to survive that fight. And he's been a durable guy who gave himself a little bit of space between those tough fights. And I just think this is going to be a really uphill battle for my man DB. If he makes me lose all my money, I'd be happier giving it back to Derrick Brunson than almost anybody on the roster. But I am selling my Derrick Brunson stock right now, and buying Jared Cannonier stock like it's going out of sale, jamboree. So I'm thinking that Jared wins this fight. I think he wins it by knockout, and I think he does it in the first 2 rounds.
Love it. I'm with you here. I think Jared Cannonier is one of those guys who's got a pretty good, well-rounded game, and he's a fear for anybody who has a questionable chin, which Brunson does. That's the way Brunson lives his fight. He's been wobbled. Even that Holland fight when he was on the feet for 2 minutes the entire time, he was wobbled. He was wobbled against Till. He gets wobbled in a lot of his fights. He is a great, great wrestler, and I'm going to give him that. But it's so hard to take down a big guy like Cannonier. And for that reason, I'm on Cannonier here as well. I think he wins. I think he finishes. I think Daz and you both hit it perfectly with that uppercut. I'm going to call it uppercut finish as well. Let's say round 2 Cannonier. Book that. Love it. And with that note, 2 fights left. The co-main event, the main event. Thank you to everybody hanging out in the chat right now. My boy Matthew saying nothing better than a stream with Gordo and Liam. I completely agree. It's an absolute banger. And we got the favorite fight for me of the year so far, 2022, Tai Tuivasa, Derrick Lewis, the Black Beast, the king of knockouts, Mr. Shuey. And here's the situation. Here's the dilemma, and you can help me figure this one out. I've done a Shuey 2 times now, twice. Tai Tuivasa knocks out Greg Hardy. Tai Tuivasa knocks out Augusto Sakai. I've done a Shuey. The number 1 rule on the Plays and Fades channel is you do not bet against Derrick Lewis. All right? I gave away the free money when he fought Gane because I didn't bet against the rule. I bet on Derrick Lewis against Curtis Blades. Why? I don't know. I'm not very smart. Well, maybe I am. Who knows? I think that Derrick Lewis is just one of these guys who has one thing. He has power, and it's so entertaining to watch him fight. I do think that there's a lapse in this market, and I know you're going to touch on it, but I can't come and bet against Derrick Lewis. I hope for another Black Beast finish here. I hope it's an absolute banger. I'm looking forward to it. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, man. My take might surprise people on this one, but I'm going with Tai Tuivasa. And, when I first thought about this matchup, I was like, Tai Tuivasa is kind of a big junker. He's probably going to get knocked out. And then I started thinking about the matchup, and I'm like, I went back, I looked at the Tai Tuivasa fights, and I'm like, okay, he's put together a streak of some knockouts here. And granted, it's not over the highest level of competition. So that's the concern, right? This is definitely a step up in competition for Tai. But Tai attempts twice the amount of strikes per minute that Derrick Lewis attempts, okay? He lands about 3 times the amount that Derrick Lewis lands. What would you think if I told you that Tai Tuivasa had the same knockdown rate in the UFC as Derrick Lewis? Now, the thing that is different, right, is that Tai Tuivasa gets knocked down more than Derrick Lewis historically. That being said, a lot of guys are hesitant to approach Derrick Lewis. Not the case with Tai Tuivasa, right? A lot of guys have been willing to brawl with Tuivasa and then learn the hard way. Whereas Derrick Lewis, everybody is fully aware, if I engage with this guy, I'm going to get knocked out. I better run away. So I think that Derrick Lewis mutes volume against a lot of opponents. And if you look at his fights, that's historically true. Guys aren't throwing a ton at Derrick Lewis, but I think Tai Tuivasa is going to buck that trend a little bit. I think he's going to be willing to exchange. I think he may die as a result, but I also think he may win. And a lot of guys don't give themselves a chance to win against Lewis. They are too nervous. They're too scared of getting knocked out, and they don't want to pursue the fight. And so what ends up happening is they're like, oh, maybe I should wrestle. Maybe I should do this. And Derrick is waiting for his one counter opportunity, and then he kills you. He is especially good at killing wrestlers. He is an anti-grappling specialist. But when you watch him fight other fast strikers, especially guys that can throw kicks, he has gotten fucked up more than once. Ciryl Gane battered him with the kicks. Sean Jordan battered him with the kicks. This is also, southpaw versus conventional matchup, I believe. I just think there's a lot to go on from the Tai Tuivasa side here at the plus 170 tag. Derrick Lewis is so often a massive underdog. He has been an underdog more times in the UFC than a favorite, despite his win rate. He's also getting up there in age, right? He's getting up there in mileage. He's had a lot of knockout losses. He's had a lot of damage in fights that he won. Like, remember the Volkov fight, by example. So I think that Tai Tuivasa, who cut to win, or excuse me, who cut to 265 as well. I see Mbe saying, I don't think Tai is big enough. Yo, he cut to 265 as well for this fight. So I think both of these guys have the power to knock each other out. I do think it's a fight that is more than likely going to end in the very first round on a crazy boxing exchange where I favor the recoverability of Tai just a little bit. But, man, it's going to be a high-pressure situation for both guys. Derrick Lewis back at the scene of the crime in Houston didn't go well for him last time. He's had a couple, reasons, excuses, whatever you want to call them, for why things didn't work out there. But I think Tai Tuivasa has a lot to offer here. He throws way more volume, lands way more. He's a more accurate striker. He's a more efficient striker. His defense is a little bit better. I think that Tai Tuivasa, everything besides quality of competition checks out. Tai Tuivasa's loss archetypes have been guys that are wrestlers, grapplers, guys that can hold him down, guys that can submit him, and Junior Dos Santos, who beat the shit out of Derrick Lewis as an old man as well. So I don't know why one guy is so much vastly superior to the other. I think that this is close to a 50-50 fight. Give me the plus 170 dog.
All right. I like the breakdown because my breakdown stays the same. You do not bet against Derrick Lewis. And I love all the points you made. Great breakdown, like I said. But it's one of these ones where, like they said, they're going to be swanging and banging. And if you're swanging and banging with Derrick Lewis, it's tough for me to have money on you just because it's like, no matter what you say, if you end up in any exchange, he has the power to shut your lights off. And I'm going to be so nervous about it. So instead, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to enjoy. You know what I do have? I have a Tai Tuivasa NFT of him doing a shoey. Shout out UFC Strike. If Tuivasa wins, maybe I'll get some more money off it. Who knows? Anyways, point being, this should be a banger. I'm excited to see this one play down. In terms of DraftKings perspective, I do think the fight should be closer. I think either one of these can get a finish. I do like the fact that Tai Tuivasa throws a ton of leg kicks. Derrick Lewis doesn't like to be hit. He likes to hit people. We've seen Tuivasa be hurt. We've seen Derrick Lewis be hurt. So it's a tough one. I don't know. I'm going to stay away from it because I'm sticking to my guns. You do not bet against Derrick Lewis, but I do like the play you do have on it. So I love it. Are we going to get that Black Beast dance? Or are we going to get that, the winning dance? There you go. Or are we going to get that shoey? Maybe a shoey out of a jock cup. I don't know. That's some weird stuff, but we'll see. All right.
Not for me.
Not for you. So I know you don't want to talk about your bets, but are you doing a shoey if Tuivasa wins?
Oh, no, I definitely am betting on Tuivasa. That's just full disclosure. And, man, I might have to, out of respect, out of honor and respect for Tai Tuivasa.
I've cashed 2 Tuivasa tickets, and the shoeys always taste better when you got some money on it.
Can I make one last point on the way out here?
Sure.
I just think that this is interesting, right? This is not me saying go out and bet this. Is just something I found interesting and may influence my decision to bet this. But Tai Tuivasa, the highest number that you could ever get, plus money number by his name to win a fight by knockout in the UFC was plus 190 at close. I'm talking about at close was plus 190 against Junior Dos Santos. Plus 190. Plus 250 he is right now to win this fight by knockout against Derrick Lewis. I found that interesting.
Hey, I know someone
6 knockouts in the UFC. I found that interesting.
My boy, Combat Sports Central, he was talking to me about it on the Twitter space I do every Thursday night with Tajik Bey. He mentioned something about the over in this fight, about it being a bit juiced. I do see the spot where it could be a technical kickboxing affair, but at the end of the day, if they're swanging and banging, hopefully one of them goes down. I prefer to do what Dad says and organize a mass shoe when Tai wins. I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't know if I'm doing a third one, if I'm not going to have any money on it. Maybe I'll be convinced. But this is something I do not want to see. We do not need to see anybody doing that. And if I think the way that Tuivasa wins is if Lewis is down, and if Lewis is down and out, I don't think he's giving his cup away. All right. Final fight of the night. Let's talk about this one. We're approaching the an hour and a half mark, so let's see if we can fit it in around there. It's a main event. It's the one I've been looking forward to a while. Israel Adesanya 21-1, Robert Whittaker 23-5. I've posted a main event breakdown on this channel. A lot of you guys know what side I'm on, but do we know which side Liam Picks Fight is on? That's the real question. I'm going to let you take this one off, and then I got my own thoughts on this one, and I'm excited to break it down with you. So tell me what you're seeing on this side and what you're playing.
Yeah, man. So official prediction from me was Israel Adesanya by TKO round 4. Bet for me, Robert Whittaker to win by decision. Now, the reason that I'm saying this is multifaceted, right? It's got to take a real solid performance from Robert Whittaker to win this fight. Robert Whittaker has the tools, but he's got to fucking put them together in perfect order, in perfect harmony, and not make, any drastic mistakes, because one drastic mistake could cost him in this matchup. When I rewatched their first fight, Israel Adesanya is very active with that head kick, right? He keeps Rob honest in terms of protecting his head by firing off that head kick pretty routinely. He's got the height, the reach advantage. So he's got these tools that Rob can never change. And Rob looks big, like physically in terms of his muscle mass here, but he just can't fix the anthropomorphic differences between these two guys, where he's got to get closer to land effectively. And Israel can see more things coming and react. So I think that this is going to be a fight that's contingent on game planning, right? If Robert Whittaker is a smart guy, which I think he is going to approach this fight with wrestling shoes and headgear, but he's also going to try to draw Israel Adesanya towards him. Israel Adesanya is not as effective on the lead as he is on the counter. We've seen this in multiple iterations, but most especially against Yoel Romero, who refused to do anything and forced Izzy to fight. And Izzy doesn't like that. Izzy likes when you come towards him. Rob gave him exactly the fight that he wanted in the first fight. Izzy admitted, I called an audible. I thought I was going to have to use some kind of game plan. And instead, he came to me, and that's what I want. And Izzy took a couple shots for his trouble, but he's very confident in a striking match. And he's willing to take one to give one if his is going to be cleaner and more effective. He's also got the longer levers. He's got more power. He's got a higher knockdown rate. But what I think is interesting about this fight is that Robert Whittaker has attempted 65% of his total takedown attempts in the UFC in his last 3 bouts, okay? He has changed the way he has been fighting to try to improve for this matchup. He has changed the way he engaged. Not as many blitzes. Still some of the classic Robert Whittaker skills, but a lot more patience, a lot more precision, a lot more picking your shots. And that's what you need to do to beat Israel Adesanya. In addition, I think that we saw Rob demonstrate that he can compose himself in a fight that's going poorly. We saw Darren Till catch him, intercept him with an elbow early, right? And that was after he had absorbed 4 knockdowns in his previous 2 bouts. That could have been the end of the Rob Whittaker story. He composes himself. He finds his way back to his feet. He finds his way into the fight. He wins the rounds. He wins the fight. Impressive performance. Very close fight, by the way. But he was able to crawl it back after it started out tough. That's championship heart and mettle. Then we see what he comes out. He continues to push through. Jared Cannonier gave him a hellacious fight. He pushed through, and he was the one that was able to hurt Jared early. He was able to deal with the leg kicks, and he was able to find his own success in combination with takedown attempts, with the clinch, just mixing up his offense a little bit and creating more threats for Jared. I think that the Kelvin Gastelum fight, I bet on Kelvin there. That was a masterclass, guys. That was an absolute beatdown. Whittaker was the better fighter. He was able to get takedowns from the body lock. I also saw that he was able to get takedowns from the single leg. He was able to set up takedowns where he goes head outside single and then starts working his way up, Frankie Edgar style, to the thigh pick, the knee pick. I think that Robert Whittaker has, wholesale changed his game to approach this guy with more caution and more patience. And it's not natural to his fighting style. So it's possible that he gets frustrated over the course of this fight, trying to slow it down, having some, bouts of, Israel getting off on low kicks, getting off on body kicks. He can't cover distance. He could get frustrated, rush forward, and get knocked out. And that's potentially what I see happening in this fight down the stretch. I think Israel is a deserving favorite in this fight, right? I would line him probably minus 185. Ironically, when they opened this line the first time these guys fought, It was Robert Whittaker who opened minus 185. He closed plus 110 for that fight, roughly speaking. So he basically had been bet to the underdog. And I think that's fair because he is not the bigger guy. He is not the guy with the dynamic power. You know, his power has been a little bit muted lately, but I do think that he's the guy who has more paths to victory. He has control time in his fights. Israel Adesanya does not. I think he has 2% control time over the course of his UFC career. That's not going to win you a fight. So he has to win striking battles every time. And oftentimes, they're within the margins. Yoel Romero, he was minus 250. Marvin Vittori, the first time, he was minus 250. Those are split decisions. Marvin Vittori made a lot of critical errors in the grappling where he could have won rounds if he had been more thoughtful. I think that there's a lot for Israel Adesanya opponents to build on and improve. I think that Jan Blachowicz also demonstrated that you can, by not overextending on your strikes and not going for power, you can find ways to pick this guy off with simple 1-2 straight combinations down the pipe. Granted, Jan Blachowicz is a little bit bigger. He does have a longer reach, but we saw that Rob had no problem closing the distance in the first fight. The problem was that he stayed in the pocket like he likes to do and kept getting hurt more and more. I think that he's got to limit the exchanges, and Robert Whittaker can win this fight. I think at plus 240, it's absurd. Just because Rob Whittaker is 6-2 as a UFC underdog. That's 75% win rate for an 80+% ROI. The guy has been a fucking killer underdog. And he's been killer on the betting market, period. I think he's over 50% ROI. He's 12-3 in the UFC, and his average odds have been minus 113. Okay? That means he has been projected to win 54% of the time, and he is winning 80% of the time. That is a massive discount. The market underrates Robert Whittaker severely, period. There's no other way to put it. On the other side, Israel Adesanya has slightly outperformed his favorite expectation, but he has lost a fight in this price range, minus 250 against Jan Blachowicz. Lost that fight. I bet on him there. Thought he was going to win. Thought he should have won. Inactivity cost him. Lack of urgency cost him. What about that Marvin Vittori fight? Did you see a ton of urgency in that fight? I didn't. I've seen a lack of urgency from Israel Adesanya, especially as a champion. So potentially this fight will get him motivated to perform and look for that knockout again. But it's going to be hard for him to top that original performance. I think psychologically, there's a lot weighing on Israel heading into this fight. Beating somebody great is hard to do twice. And I think that it's very possible he does it. But I do think that it's a little bit disrespectful to Robert Whittaker, his skills, his body of work, his resume. I think that this is a fight that's winnable for Rob Whittaker, and I'm going to have some action down on him by Saturday night.
Beautiful. Oh, beautiful. All right. Thank you very much for that, my friend. I think it was a great breakdown. Summarized a lot of the points that I want to talk as well. I think this is one where if you gave me 50-50 odds, I think that Adesanya is a great kickboxer and has a very good game plan to win this fight, but it's not. This line is blown out of proportion in my mind. I think that the more well-rounded game goes to Whittaker, and it's not like he can't hold his own on the feet. He's shown to have an insane ability to get in and out of range. It has some great combination as well. And like you said, he's orienting his game to get more takedowns, and he's like, if he gets them, I think that he is far superior than Adesanya. I know he is far superior than Adesanya on the ground. So you're giving me this plus 250. Daz is saying that they're giving plus 400 out there. You got to tell me what book that is. For a guy in Whittaker who's been the champ, who's now more motivated, taking that last time they fought, Whittaker was on a 14-month layoff. Like he wasn't in the right mindset. He took the time, and now he's ready to go out there and kill. And I think that's what he does. He's got the ground game to do so. He's got the striking to do so. He's got the fight IQ to do so. And I think the only problem last was his head in it. And he was trying to headhunt too much, and it cost him. He stayed in the pocket too long, and he lost. He's got that ground game. He knows he has to do it. And I think he's smart enough to go out there and win a decision. I'm with you. I think this is a winnable fight for Robert Whittaker, and I think he goes out there and does it. I'm not going to talk about it much more. I'm not going to dwell on the fact, but I just think this line is blown out of proportion. I was waiting. I'm hoping to get plus 250. If I'm being honest, I already locked up a bet at plus 240 just in case people are seeing what I'm seeing. But I like some Robbie Whittaker here. I think he wins this fight, and I'm excited to see it go down. I think it's be very, very close. And it just shouldn't. I don't think either fighter should be minus 250 here. And with that, man, we're done the breakdown. An hour and 34 minutes. 14 fight card. I think that's pretty good for us. I think this is an absolute beautiful card, and there's a lot of things I want to go through before we wrap it up. But first of all, my friend, tell them where they can find you, and tell them if you got any plays you're loving this week.
Absolutely. So, guys, you can find me at scoresandodds.com. Wrote an odds preview for the main event. Just submitted very late my Roto Grinders main event preview as well. In that article, I do pick Israel Adesanya to win the fight by fourth round KO or TKO. But I also stress that I think the betting side is Robert Whittaker and fairly obviously at the price. So that's my lean on that fight. As for the rest of my betting action, I have released a couple public plays. I did mention Just Win Baby. Credit to him. We did a social media post together, and he wanted to get some information out there for the people. That's what I believe in. Good guys versus the bookies. So Jared Cannonier on the money line was the play that we gave out. And in addition, Kyler Phillips to win the fight by submission as our prop poke as well, plus 550. So I think that there's good value available on those numbers. And man, it's a fight where I hate going against my man Derrick Brunson. And I did mention if I have to give the money back, that's life, because Derrick Brunson's a freaking hero of mine, and I do respect his hard work and his hustle. But by God, he's got a tough challenge in front of him. And Jared Cannonier at minus 150, may end up looking like a gift in hindsight. So, with that being said, I think that I've had a great time on the show today. I appreciate the opportunity, as always, my man. Tonight, Lucrative MMA is going to be on my show, as well as Mr. Bo Miller making his debut. So really excited to have those guys on, and excited to break down these fights. I think that there's a lot still to dive into. So appreciate you, my man, and good tidings to everybody. Always be safe. Bet money that you have. Be responsible. God bless and good luck.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining in as always. I think we killed it this time, and I think we lined up a lot, which hasn't been the case too much recently. So I'm happy to be on the same side as you. Hopefully we both make some money. Appreciate everybody for hanging out. DFS Brisper, good luck in the Ironman this week to you as well. Frank Newman, as always, much love. And Daz, hopefully you guys get your shooters going. I'd love to see a mass shoot. That'd be hilarious. I've done mine solo the past couple times, but like I said, never bet against Derek Lewis. So that's going to do it for us in the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. One last thing for you guys. Now is the time. Go check out that DFS video. Go comment your DraftKings username so you guys can be entered in the free contest. Give them some cash away for you beautiful supporters. So go out there, show some love, and win some of my money. Other than that, I got a bunch of resources out this week. I got a main event breakdown. I got this video. I did a DFS breakdown. I also did a DFS Twitter space with Tajik Bey, and an NFL video coming tomorrow to break down the Super Bowl on Sunday. So it's a great weekend for sports. Absolutely loving it. I'm super hyped. I'm going to let Liam go, but make sure to join me to break down the fights with him. Join me in the chat to watch him break down the fights later on tonight. I'm going to be there. Always go show him some love at LiamPicksFight on YouTube as well. Subscribe over there. And that's going to do it for us, guys. Let's make some money. Cheers.